network television stations from coast to coast. Another tragic school shooting has happened, this time in South Florida, in Broward County. Happened about 2:30 this afternoon. We now know that the suspect is now in custody, taken into custody not far from that school, less than a mile. The sheriff says he is an 18-year-old who's now at a local hospital being treated for we don't know, and will then be taken for processing. We know multiple people have died. We do not know how many, but we're beginning to get accounts from teachers who were inside the school. One of them, a man named Jim Gard, who is a math teacher. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. They've had a drill in the morning, and now they're hearing those same noises again. And he tells the Miami Herald, 6 kids ran back into my room, and I locked the door and turned out the lights and had the kids go into the back of the room, he said. And within a minute of this code red being announced, something for which they'd had a drill earlier in the day, we're told, I told the kids to hang in there. This may be a drill. The Miami Herald reports the students remained calm. One high school senior elsewhere at the school told the Herald that there were SWAT teams everywhere with big guns, cops everywhere, and helicopters, and that's a quote. She said the parents trying to reach their children had been unable to make it to the school because the streets were all blocked off. That was at 2:40 this afternoon. It's now just a couple of minutes after 5, and a live witness is with us. Let's listen.
The classrooms on the 3rd floor. We ran to the staircase, but then everyone kind of paused, and we all started running back. I was being pushed and pulled through the hallway, and we ran to the classroom. And the minute I got into my classroom, I heard gunshots, multiple rounds from I'm not sure what gun. Then we stayed in there for I don't even remember how long, a really long time. And the police came through the hallway to get us. And in the hallway, I saw a big pile of blood, kind of smeared, as if they were dragged away. And I saw 2 girls probably dead in the hallway. And then coming down the stairs, there was some more blood. And outside of the building, there was another guy. And I think it was a teacher who was pretty sure was dead outside.
And what did you see, Leah? You said that you were inside, and
I was
the gunshot
inside.
was not just one gunshot.
It was multiple.
How did it sound?
It really loud because it was right outside my door, and my teacher didn't let us out even when the fire alarm did go off, which was lucky because then we could have really gotten hurt, one of our classmates. But I saw basically the same thing as her, and there was just a lot of blood everywhere, and there was bodies kind of just everywhere. It was gross.
You saw a lot of bodies?
Yeah, there was I think there was 4 of them. So.
And your thoughts when you were getting out of there?
Well, I remember my friend crying behind me, and I kept trying to tell her it's going to be okay, we're going to get out. And luckily we did get out, but it was kind of scary, and I didn't want to look at anything. So, yeah, that was my thoughts.
Okay. And your parents are here now, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just sure you're going to give them a big hug.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
2 students, the first telling us of a pile of blood in the hallway, and the police coming to get us on a Wednesday afternoon, Valentine's Day in South Florida. We know very little about what was happening in this kid's mind, an 18-year-old described by the sheriff as a former student who's now in custody and at a hospital. In fact, we have some live pictures in front of that hospital where the authorities are outside guarding the doors. And there it is. It says Parkland, but this is actually in Broward County. This is Broward Health North. And you can see the Parkland police there, Pompano Beach police. And on WSVN, they're still continuing to cover this across South Florida. As we wait to learn, she said, I thought I saw 4 bodies in there, 1 teacher who appeared to be a victim. And now WSVN with a witness. Let's listen.
I mean, closest to the highway, they pulled the fire alarm and they went on the intercom and they told everybody to evacuate. And when we were down by the portables, we finally got word from the students as rumors, and we walked all the way across from the canal, and we ended up right over there.
I heard a lot of gunshots, and then right after, when the police let us out, there was dead bodies everywhere. There was 2 there, and then when I kept walking down, there was more. It was just scary.
We were just in class waiting, doing notes and talking about a project, and the fire alarm goes for the 2nd time in the same day, which is weird. So we all just go out to the field like we're supposed to, and then I hear gunshots. You can tell,
and then usually,
it's definitely gunshots.
Yeah.
Usually whenever a fire alarm goes off, it's usually just culinary, an accident or nothing, but it was really odd to have 2 fire alarms in one day.
So you heard those students talk about it was kind of a weird situation that they had a fire drill today and then heard that second fire alarm go off and caught a lot of them thinking must be some mistake here. There's no way we're doing this twice in one day. Quickly realizing it was a run for your life situation, and an all-call evacuation went out and students started leaving the school at any exit as they could find. Still seeing some parents here at one of the major intersections. We're Coral Ridge Drive, and I want to make sure I say it right, Holdberg. And we're hearing from various officials. You heard from the sheriff that they're asking parents who maybe haven't made contact with their students yet, and most parents that I've spoken with have at least touched base, thank God, with their children who were inside the high school, even the ones that didn't get out until most recently. But thanks to cell phones and friends who may have had cell phones in the classroom, most were able to make contact with students, but haven't been able to do so. There's a Marriott, I think it's Coral Springs one here in Bay, and so they're asking parents to respond there if there are still some questions, or if you've yet to be able to make contact with loved ones. Hugely active scene still at this point. Again, this all taking place moments before school was officially set to dismiss on this Wednesday afternoon. So it would have put it around the 2 o'clock hour. Shortly after 2 o'clock, I think the school lets out about 2:40. Kids were winding down their day. Obviously, it's Valentine's Day. There was a lot of balloons on campus. I heard more than one student say initially they thought the pops that they heard could have been balloons popping. Word quickly spread on social media, which of course is a game changer as far as information spreading, especially among the younger generations, and talking about high schoolers here. So information spreads extremely quickly. But it's been chaotic. It's been a day these families will certainly never forget, and you just hope that they're all having reunions now, Craig.
All right, 7 News reporter Brandon Byer, thanks so much for that. We're going to get back with you as you get more, and you hear from these young people.
It has been astounding to see these young people come to the microphones. The previous camera was one of our producers, and then that one was Brandon, the reporter there for WSVN, as student after student recount seeing their fellow students dead in the hall. It's just, we're left just to wonder how many kids and administrators and teachers are unaccounted for, and what it was that this, we're now told, 18-year-old former student was doing in that school. How to get a weapon in there, and how long this went on. One of the darkest days in Broward County history, of course, and all of South Florida, as the president has said. Thoughts and prayers with all of those involved. This is that vehicle, 9407, I believe. These are pictures from earlier. That's the bringing of the suspect into custody, and there he is, described earlier. It immediately went out through the students and others there that he was wearing a maroon shirt. He had black pants. At one point, he had a black cap on. And they figured out very quickly where he lived in the local police. I am not sure which jurisdiction, but they'll let us know that eventually. Was able to get him into custody. We don't know what other sort of designs he had. We know that he had been talking about bombs. Whether that was just talk or we'll know eventually. But the question is, how many people did not make it out of that school alive today? WSVN discussing this situation that led to him going to the hospital. Let's listen to the local coverage now from Craig Stevens and Len Martinez on the anchor desk.
A mile or so away at the school campus itself, the sheriff was explaining to us that to the best of their knowledge, the kids who had been barricaded inside had been evacuated and being moved to another location where they could reunite with their parents, but they still are canvassing the building in the event there are any students or faculty or staffers who might have been hiding, taking coverage, or perhaps those wounded and unable to leave. So that process is continuing as we speak. On the one end, you have those who have evacuated and they're waiting to meet with their parents or their loved ones and leave the area. But authorities are still going room by room, every nook, every cranny, every closet, every space in that fairly large campus facility to see if there is anybody who might still be in there wounded or perhaps just unaware of the outcome and they're still in hiding. That could take a little while, so we'll certainly wait to hear back from the sheriff or other authorities as that process continues, and hope, by golly, hope that there aren't others inside because they're injured and they're unable to move.
Yes. That would be a big hope. Superintendent Robert Runcie used the words numerous fatalities, and he said, I believe a teacher or administrator may be involved in those fatalities. We do have sound from a teacher who was in the school at the time who managed to get out. Somebody interviewed this teacher via cell phone. Let's listen.
It was the end of the school day, and the fire alarm went off, and we went to evacuate, as if it was a fire drill, and then we got maybe 15, 20 steps out of the classroom, and we were told that we were on cold red, and we ran back inside to the classroom and got down, crossed down on the floor, and then we moved into the closet. A friend of mine teaches on in the freshman building, and she said that as she was leaving that there were bodies on the floor. So I don't know.
This is local coverage, and WSVN is a Fox station, and they're affiliates of multiple outlets, just as we have two other affiliates down there. We all sort of cross-pollinate these days, and this happens to be material from the competition. Not that it's a day to think about that sort of thing, and none of us is. I know none of our friends at CNN, and certainly none of mine here at Fox, are focused on anything but what a horrific thing has taken place. We have seen it again and again, and I will never, ever forget, as long as I live, being outside Columbine High School in the early evening as those two men had gone on the rampage there in the cafeteria. And over the week that followed, speaking to children and parents about all that they had just experienced and trying to deal with what was and is to this day, I am 100% confident, their new normal. Young people do not witness what they have witnessed today in Broward County, Florida, without being changed. And it was Craig who said just a moment ago, Craig Stevens, the local anchor there in Miami, had said, we will get through this as a community. We'll do so with the love and comfort of our friends and neighbors and our family, and we'll do so together. But it will not be easy, and it won't, for the young faces who are telling you about what they just experienced a few minutes ago, with adrenaline still running now close to 3 hours after this all happened, when the television cameras and the sirens and the police all go away and they're at home with their families for the next few days. Those who have seen their friends and classmates and potentially teachers and administrators die in front of them at school are forever in a new place. And they will all take comfort in each other and pray that this does not happen again. WSVN's coverage continues. It's 14 minutes past 5 o'clock in South Florida. This happened just short of 3 hours ago, and certainly all of South Florida aware by now.
Children inside of West Glades Middle who were watching this all unfold. These middle school students, they could see from their windows, they could see SWAT team running inside of the high school, running outside, and they were just so terrified while just the most horrific event was happening right next door to them. So now parents walking, this is about less than half a mile towards West Glades Middle School, walking to get to their loved one, hug their child so tight as they grab them, knowing that their child is okay. But there are many parents out there who are not going to be able to say that tonight.
We just don't know how many just yet. We know that since Columbine in 1999, there have been 25 fatal active school shooting incidents at elementary and high schools in America. Columbine was April the 20th, 1999, 13 fatalities and more than 20 wounded. Also in 99, Deming High School in New Mexico, Buell Elementary School in Michigan. In the year 2000, Lake Worth Community Middle School, where one was killed, in Florida. In 2001, Santana High School in California. In 2001, Red Lion Junior High School. In 2003, Ricori High School in Minnesota. In 2005, Red Lake High School in Minnesota. In 2005, Campbell County Comprehensive High School in Tennessee. In 2006, Essex Elementary School in Vermont. In 2006, Weston High School in Wisconsin. In 2006, West Nickel Mines School in Pennsylvania. In 2011, Millard South High School in Nebraska. In 2012, Chardon High School in Ohio. In 2012, Sandy Creek Elementary School in Connecticut, where 26 elementary school students and others were killed. In 2013, Sparks Middle School in Nevada. In 2013, Arapahoe High School in Arapahoe, Colorado. In 2014, Reynolds High School in Oregon. In 2014, Marysville High School in Washington. In 2016, Independent High School in Arizona. In 2016, Townville Elementary School in North Carolina. In 2017, North Park Elementary School in California. In 2017, Freeman High School in Washington. In 2018, Marshall County High School, just 3 weeks ago in Kentucky. And today, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County, Florida, in the town of Parkland, where many students and teachers and administrators have died today. We do not yet know how many. The 25th fatal school shooting since Columbine High School in America. And coverage continues on WSVN Now.
That school, again, it's at less than a half a mile. They have this area all closed off. As soon as the shooting happened, they closed this road. They closed the other road leading to the other side of this complex, not allowing anyone inside. But, you know, there are many parents out there who still have not heard from their child, and those parents are trying to figure out if their child is on that list. And many people calling and texting and asking, have you heard if my daughter is okay? Have you heard if my son is okay? We're getting many of those phone calls out here. We just don't know. It's too soon. We don't have any victims' names as of yet. We do know many people were transported, but again, these are just parents trying to pick up their West Glades Middle School students out here on this road, Holmberg Road. They were stuck across the street and they were not allowed to come, but now they've opened up the street, and, you know, parents frantic out here. You can see them on the phones. There were so many people out here using their cell phones that there was no service. So many parents could not get in touch with their child for several hours. They were not allowing, they couldn't get through. So these parents now finally in touch with their child, and they're now being allowed to go grab their child. But again, just as this scene unfolded from 2:30 when that bell rang at that school, and then shortly after gunshots rang out, this is now the very sad aftermath. The chaos is now turning into a very raw reality for these people as they start to understand the gravity of this situation, what has actually happened here in Parkland. We do know several people, multiple fatalities, according to Superintendent Robert Runcie out here. A horrific scene at this school for parents, thousands of parents and family members, people trying to figure out where their loved ones are and were, and still many people who have not spoken to their child are still in the middle of this hell, trying to find their daughter or son who may still be inside that school and at this point may not be coming out alive. So very sad scene out here. Back to you guys on the desk.
Well, yes, our hearts go out to those parents who maybe have not heard from their children. It's worth repeating. On the left-hand side is a live picture of the parents being allowed to actually walk to West Glades Middle School, which was also put on immediate lockdown when the shooting broke out. And, of course, to the right is an aerial picture of the situation still going on at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School there in Parkland, where parents are being reunited with their children. This is a story that's made headlines since it happened, 2:35, all around the country. Sheriff Scott Israel said that he has spoken to Governor Scott, and Governor Scott is on his way to South Florida. He said he also has spoken to President Trump.
We're also getting some reaction to this from congressional lawmakers and others. Let's bring Jeff Lennox into the conversation. He's at the Satellite Center for us. Jeff?
Yeah, Craig, Lynn, like you mentioned, from our national leaders on down to state and local, we have a lot of reaction coming in as our leaders assess this ongoing situation, this school shooting in Parkland. Again, like you mentioned, President Donald Trump, tweeting out his sympathies to the victims and their families. We know Governor Rick Scott is on his way to South Florida. He has been briefed on the situation. Also, Senator Marco Rubio tweeting out a few moments ago that he has been briefed by Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. And again, now we are getting some on-camera sound from Senator Bill Nelson in Washington talking about this situation. He has also been briefed on the very latest developments coming in out of Parkland. Here's what he has had to say.
This is a bad day for Florida and for the country. And you can imagine the grief of parents right now not knowing, as well as the students not knowing.
That was Senator Bill Nelson.
And a tweet here from the president that we shared with you earlier. My prayers and condolences to the families and victims of the terrible Florida shooting. No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school. It's our understanding that the FBI is working in connection with the local authorities, the Broward Sheriff's Office, the Parkland Police, and the Coral Springs Police. These are some of the first pictures that were coming. Well, actually, this is the suspect being taken into custody just about an hour and a half or so after all of this began. I'm sure many of you, if you're following this on social media or beyond, are seeing the name of this suspect. But it's our policy not to release that sort of thing until the authorities release it to us. The reason for that is sometimes a person of interest, a suspect, turns out to be something else entirely. It happens. And so we'll wait for authorities. While WSVN has a reporter on scene at the hospital with an update there, let's listen in.
With more on where the suspect was apprehended a short time ago. Franklin?
Yeah, this right here is the Wyndham Lakes area, and the suspect was captured beyond these houses right here on the backside of those houses down there. Police, people who saw it all are, as you can imagine, shaken up. Now, the suspect was taken and arrested to North Broward. Let me show you some video cell phone video from a viewer who saw the arrest firsthand. And now he, of course, pulled up to it as it was happening. He caught the video of the suspect being arrested and taken to the ground, the suspect in that maroon shirt. He's telling me the person who shot that video, of course, you can imagine, can't believe this happened in a place he lived. And the question they're wondering is, why was that person, that suspect, here in this community? Does he live here? Does he know somebody here? Why was he here? So that's the big question they're all wondering. And, you know, it's a sigh of relief that he's arrested. Of course, people here happy that he's gone. And if you live near the Wyndham Lakes area, you cannot access this community. You cannot come in at all. You can leave, but you can't come back in. There's now traffic surrounding this entire area. And again, that suspect arrested hours ago. He left, apparently when he left the school, he came here, he was tackled by police. Residents who live in this Wyndham Lakes area saw it firsthand, caught that cell phone video. Let's take you to the person who caught that video and get his reaction. Take a listen.
Oh, that's scary. That's scary. I mean, definitely, the fact that having a shooting on a community like this one, it is just shocking. Now, when it comes to just being so close to your house, it's like you never really know where and what's going to happen. We went around 10, holding them down, and more coming over. They were jumping out of the vehicles, making sure that the guy was down, and of course it was congratulations everyone there for that. They were shaking hands, etc. But there was no any hitting to the guy in the ground. There was no abuse given to the guy. I mean, nothing of that happened. The guy was just scuffed. There was face there, as the video shows.
Again, you're hearing him say that police seem to be congratulating each other, happy they caught that suspect. He says it didn't appear that the suspect was hurt, and it didn't appear that he tried to resist police. Again, that suspect arrested here in the Wyndham Lakes area in Coral Springs. Again, didn't seem to be hurt, but he was taken to Broward North in an ambulance. Residents who, of course, as you can imagine, not believing that this is where that person was arrested. We'll try to get you more sound and more reaction from folks who live here. For now, that's it live in Coral Springs. Franklin White, 70.
And thanks to you and the rest of the team there, Craig Stevens, and Lynn Martinez, Ralph Rayburn up in the chopper, and all the rest, and we'll get back to them. I want to get to our own Phil Keating, who's based in South Florida and is now live with us on scene in Parkland. Phil, to you.
Hi, Shepard. We are just about a half-mile south of the high school right now, and as you have mentioned throughout the coverage of the past 3 hours, the law enforcement community, led by the Broward County Sheriff's Department, really responded rapidly and had this person of interest, suspect, matching the description of the black hat, the burgundy shirt, and the black pants in custody, roughly a mile and a half away from the school, which we believe is where he had been living. According to the school superintendent of Broward County and the sheriff, this was not a current student, but an 18-year-old. And the governor, Rick Scott, is on his way from Tallahassee down here. He has spoken and remained in contact with law enforcement down here. He has already expressed his grief for the families of those affected. We still don't know exactly the full number of injured and fatalities. However, the Broward County Superintendent Robert Runcie did say that there are numerous fatalities on a horrible, horrible day. And just moments ago, the Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, said that this is an absolutely, quote, catastrophic day. Not anything really can be worse than this. Where we are right now, this is the Sawgrass Expressway above us. This is a major expressway that wraps around the western side of the Broward County metro area. Just behind me, roughly half a mile, is the high school proper. This is as far north as anybody can go here on Coral Springs Way. So right now, all around the school in all of these areas, and of course it is rush hour, which is on a daily basis horrendous in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. People are stuck. Parents were at a nearby elementary school as well as a hotel trying to rendezvous with their students, their kids, their boys and girls. You saw the scenes of the kids running from the school as law enforcement released groups of 8, groups of 20, all of them running with their backpacks on, hands up, sprinting really, in terror and with the aim of getting to safety, all of which was totally reminiscent from the Columbine High School massacre back in the 90s, which, Shepard, both you and I were there and covered that as well. And one of the worst parts of the school shootings is for the parents responding panicked, looking for their loved ones, their sons and daughters, trying to find them. And in those minutes, those long minutes, sometimes hours of not being able to find their son or daughter, it is truly a parent's absolute worst nightmare. So law enforcement is all over this area, traffic at a standstill, and the governor's on his way down here, and we are expecting at some point the sheriff of Broward County to soon get in front of the cameras. But this has been a very rapid investigation. According to the sheriff, like I mentioned, 18-year-old, not a student currently, certainly could have been a former student. There had been some students who mentioned that they knew who they thought he was, but he matched the description, and the investigation continues here on a horrible day in Broward County school history. Shep.
Phil Keating, our South Florida-based correspondent, who's live there for us on scene this afternoon, and live pictures coming from first above the school and now certainly from the centers all around as parents work to find their kids. For those of you watching on local Fox stations or My Network television stations across America, we're going to return you to your local program, in some cases your local news. Our coverage will continue on Fox News Channel, on satellite and cable for the better part of the next 30 minutes before Special Report with Brett Baer. I'm Shepard Smith, Fox News in New York. And continuing now on Fox News Channel across the country and around the world. And we've been listening to WSVN's coverage, but also monitoring from our other sources, including the Associated Press, which has the latest from parents who described a chaotic and frightening situation as they rushed to find their children in the frantic minutes after they heard reports of a shooting in this South Florida high school. Cesar Figueroa says that he was one of the first parents to arrive at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School there in Parkland. He says he saw police officers bringing out big weapons as they approached the school. Again, this is from Associated Press. Figueroa's office is only 5 minutes from the school where he sends his 16-year-old daughter. Quoting him now, "My wife called me that there was an active shooter and the school was on lockdown. I got on the road and saw helicopters, police with machine guns. It was crazy. And my daughter wasn't answering her phone. According to Figueroa, she texted him that she was hidden inside a closet at the school with friends. Quoting now, she was in a classroom and she had heard gunshots by the window. She and her friends ran into the closet. Another parent, Beth Feingold, says her daughter sent her a text at 2:32 p.m. this afternoon, almost exactly 3 hours ago, saying, and I quote, "We're on code red. I'm fine." But she sent another text soon afterwards saying, "Mom, I'm so scared." The little girl was later able to escape the school unharmed. The sheriff there in Broward County, Scott Israel, has told us that the gunman was first in a classroom and then outside it, and then outside the building itself. The sheriff says one of the darkest days ever in South Florida, and certainly the school superintendent's nightmare come true. With 270,000 students. I just got word. What was that again? I'm sorry. Live interview with a witness. Let's listen.
Kind of like, you know, we were just there in the moment, and then we were having our hands on our heads, getting out, and everybody out. Walking. Yeah.
Okay, when this first happened, it was a fire. You thought it was a fire drill?
We thought it was a fire drill, but we heard the shots beforehand, and I'm guessing he wanted everybody to come out. So.
Who's he?
I don't know if it was he or she or the person who had the firearm in hand.
So the person that you think did the shooting, is that what you think is? They pulled the fire alarm beforehand?
To round everybody out. And then.
And what did you do at that time?
We all hid in a corner. We were silent. We were all texting our parents. It was just very, very scary. And then when the police came, we got reports of people dying, and then one of our teachers being shot trying to save a student.
And how did you hear the gunshots? Was it just one gunshot?
No, it was multiple, like 5 at a time, and then it was a fully automatic, just bang, bang, and it was just onto that. And it was very, very frightening. We all thought it was a drill, but apparently it was an active shooter.
And when you were let out, what did you see?
We saw everything normal, but I looked to my left and I saw a security guard on the floor dead. It's a very traumatizing thing to watch, and yep. And then we all just went out. We see cop cars all the way over there, and just everybody panicking, screaming, crying, people hugging, seeing their family again. It was just, this is an event that shouldn't happen.
And Kyle, your school is normally a quiet school. You're in the middle of the suburbs.
Of course, right. We're a very quiet school, a great school actually, but we didn't expect anything to happen like this. It was just, and this is a bad time. It was just, we were just in the moment, you know.
So you're glad to see your mom?
Yes, I'm very glad.
No problem. And it's so ironic that it's like almost one drill every week. We do a drill. Yeah, we just have 2 days.
We have no reason to doubt that young man and what he saw on this tragic day, but we are not reporting specifics of those killed yet, for we're waiting for authorities to announce that. And speaking of authorities, a federal official has now identified the school shooting suspect as Nicholas Cruz. The official spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. The official said that he had been briefed on the investigation into the shooting at the South Florida high school, but was not authorized to discuss it publicly. Authorities say that shooter opened fire and killed numerous people. And now students are speaking to reporters on scene. It's 25 minutes before the top of the hour, and we're waiting for the Broward Sheriff, Scott Israel, to come back to the cameras with an update. We're expecting more specifics as WSVN, our South Florida news station's coverage continues here in the 5 o'clock hour. Let's listen.
It brings me chills. And these kids who, when we interview them, they're very stoic, very matter of fact, but, it's going to take time to process it. And we heard a soundbite from one particular student a short time ago say, yeah, there was a loud noise, and we opened up the door and there are bodies everywhere. That's pretty much how he said it. So it's going to take time to process exactly what happened. And you see this little girl holding on to her mom very tight. Unclear if she went to West Glades Middle or maybe she's just, there with her mom. who has a student at one of the schools. So parents are still working on being reunited with their children. Again, this bears repeating, numerous times. Deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County. Parents really putting their arms tightly around their students tonight and their kids.
You talk about something that this will obviously be something that's relevant in the next couple of weeks, but when students will go back to school, they will offer grief counseling services for the students, for anybody really, to talk about this and to find a way to try to cope moving forward. That's something we'll watch for soon.
Let's interrupt Craig real quick. This is Vanessa Medina interviewing a child. Let's listen.
My friend just heard these gunshots. We think it's fireworks, but we weren't sure until our coaches told us that they were gunshots.
Okay, so what's your first name again?
Connor.
Connor is a student at West Glades Middle, and you could clearly hear these gunshots.
Yeah, I could clearly hear them. It sounded about 10 of them.
And what did they tell you to do? Where did you go?
They told us to hide with them, and we hid there for about 10 minutes until we saw that there was someone and they said that there was somebody being closer, so we had to move into the PE locker room. So.
And then you stayed in the PE locker room for how long?
About 2.5 to 2.5 hours, something like that.
Did you know anything that was happening outside?
We were watching the live broadcast and stuff. That's all we knew.
They all have phones, so they were well in tune with what was going on the outside.
Now, Mom, I spoke to you earlier when you didn't know where Connor was and you were just so terrified. Tell me the feeling seeing your son. He's okay tonight.
Like I said, it's a sigh of relief. I'm so glad that he is okay. I mean, I'm sure we are all feeling a sigh of relief tonight, but my hearts and prayers go out to those high school students and family members that didn't make it, and let's all say a prayer for their families tonight.
Absolutely.
Well, there are a number of schools in that area. Westlake Middle is nearby, but we have nothing to indicate from police that this shooter left this campus or went to any other. Over the years, I will tell you, I've been at more of these school shootings than I care to remember. There was one in Pearl, Mississippi. There was another. I mentioned Columbine, another back in May of 1998, in Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon. We can go back before then, but one constant is every time from people who've witnessed things and people who were there's always information that's just not correct. I can remember just hours after the Columbine High School shooting, people who having witnessed things and their memory was just wrong about what they had seen. And counselors tell us that this happens over and over again because people are expecting one thing. You're expecting a regular day at school. It's Valentine's Day. You took chocolate for your friend, or you took a flower for your teacher, or there were balloons all over campus, and you were expecting one thing on this day, and suddenly you got something else. Or you were a parent who was at work and you got a text from your kid, we're on code red, there's a shooter, and all of a sudden everything about your life is different than it was 1 minute ago. Everything just changed, and your focus has changed, and your memories are not always accurate. And it's certainly possible that little kid from another school heard those 10 shots. It's certainly possible that he did. But he mentioned something that we should all think about these days, and that is that all these kids have phones. And now the local stations stream their coverage live. So if you're a student in one of these schools, what they're telling us there is that they pulled their phones out, went to the app on their phone. For instance, our station down there, Channel 7, has an app where you can watch their local news whenever they come on. Well, they don't normally have news at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but they did today, and they're streaming it. And what they're telling us is that these kids are watching the news streaming of their own school. And we're watching them come out with their hands over their heads in the school, and some of these kids are no doubt watching that as well. I remember the first time I realized that we weren't going to be the first ones to tell the story of what happened there, and that was at the Virginia Tech massacre, when we looked around as reporters and students were texting each other. Students were telling each other their stories rather than telling them to the rest of the world, because there wasn't social media yet. Now there is. And now it's spreading on social media. Now a mom who came up to get a child being interviewed by WSVN. Let's listen.
Your son.
I'm a sub at West Glades. I wasn't at Douglas today. I was at West Glades.
Do you normally sub at Douglas?
I normally sub at Eagle Ridge Elementary School, and I just subbed at Westglades today. But I was in the classroom that was facing Holbrook.
Okay, we're going to interrupt Vanessa Medina. I'm sorry to interrupt that emotional interview. The poor parents and administrators dealing with being reunited with their children. Some still have not been reunited with their student or child. This is a live picture of Broward North, where the shooting suspect, we understand, is going to be taken out of the hospital and transported.
Right. He may well have been brought there for some sort of evaluation before they begin the process of processing him. Been there for a little over an hour, I guess, by my estimate. And at any second now, we expect to see this young suspect identified as Nicholas Cruz be escorted out by BSO and brought to whether their central office or somewhere else for processing. So that's why we're going to hang on this picture for just a moment to get a look at the young man who authorities say is behind all of this today.
The last time we saw him, he was on a stretcher, wearing a burgundy or maroon dark shirt. He had dark hair. We understand that he is at least 18 years old, possibly 18 years old. Sheriff Israel said a former student there at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, alleged to have gone into school, was seen outside of the school and inside of the school about 2:35. Unclear how many weapons he had, but police say he indeed is responsible for numerous deaths and the worst mass shooting, the worst, deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County, responsible for numerous fatalities, at least 14 people injured physically. The whole school has been affected. Westglades Middle has also been affected. So what we anticipate seeing...
Or hopefully seeing it. It looks like they backed up the vehicle in such a way it might be harder to see, and that's why I think the shot's a little wobbly. The photographer's trying to compensate and adjust so we can get a look at this when this actually happens.
Well, it depends on how he comes out, I suppose. Walking, you know, will we see the top of his head? It depends. So we're going to keep our eyes trained on this because it's natural human nature to wonder, you know, who allegedly is responsible and what does a suspect look like, because it's really, really hard to wrap your brain around exactly what happened. We got 7's Walter Morris there. He is watching this picture along with us. He's actually at the scene. Walter? All right, as soon as we hook up with Walter, we'll talk to him. Again, the suspect has been identified as a man named Nicholas Cruz. Again, 18 years old and a former student there at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Some students that we interviewed say that they actually know him. And let's go back to Walter. Walter, can you hear me? Go ahead.
Lynn, that's right. As you can see, BSO personnel now standing by the door as we wait for the alleged shooter to be transported away from the hospital. Now, he's been here for about an hour or so. We spoke with the rep for BSO a few minutes ago. She's now working on getting us some more numbers in terms of casualties and specifically the number of victims brought here versus other hospitals in the area. But as you can see now, a deputy coming out of the hospital. A few minutes ago, BSO again pushing us back again. As you can imagine, a lot of moving parts here, and this is a very intense investigation. So we've watched as BSO personnel as well as members from other law enforcement agencies have really been keeping this area on lockdown. As you can see, there's now a massive police escort as that suspect, we believe he is in the back of this squad car right here, as he now leaves the hospital. So again, a lot of moving parts. You can see him actually right there in the back of that squad car leaving the hospital. He's been here for about an hour. Of course, we're still waiting for an update from police, from BSO regarding why he was brought here in terms of the nature of his injuries, but he has now been taken away from the hospital.
All right, Walter Morris, thanks so much. As we mentioned, the suspect identified again here as Nicholas Cruz, spent little time there, about an hour or so at Broward Health North in Deerfield Beach, and is now being moved by BSO. Not clear where, whether it's to the central jail or another location as they begin to process him as a suspect in this crime. But that is happening now, and reporters on that too. So as we learn more about that aspect of the story, of course, we'll bring you up to date on
Greg
that.
Stevens speaking from our Fox station in South Florida, WSVN 7, along with Lynn Martinez and others, reporter on scene. And the long and short of it is that suspect, BSO, is the Broward Sheriff's Office, and it's Broward Sheriff's Office, Broward County, which is the county where Fort Lauderdale is. This is in a town of Parkland, and the Broward School District is the 6th largest in all the nation. And the superintendent is the first who told us that multiple people are dead inside that school. At this moment, we still do not know how many. Our Trace Gallagher with some new information just coming into us. Trace?
Yeah, Shep, as we watch Nicholas Cruz being taken from the hospital now to the jail, we're getting some more reports about him. Apparently, he was a member of a former member, I should say, of the U.S. Army Junior Reserve, which is an officer's training program for young people. And fellow students apparently said over and over again that he was obsessed with guns, that he had numerous pictures of guns on his cell phone, and that he would show them to various students, and that he would say he would shoot guns because it gave him an exhilarating feeling. And a former teacher, or in fact a current teacher at the high school, tells the Miami Herald that Cruz apparently was told last year that he was not allowed to come back on campus with a backpack because apparently he had made some kind of threats against students. This is last year. Remember, police say he's a former student, so it's unclear exactly how he got back on campus this year and was able to conceal a weapon while he did so. But again, the superintendent was asked that very question, if in fact there was any kinds of threat or warning from this particular person, and the superintendent said he was unaware that he knew of any threats or warning associated with Nicholas Cruz. We should also point out that we have scoured his social media footprint. We've mentioned this before, but he was clearly obsessed with guns because he was attached and followed all types of gun groups, as well as resistance groups, the Syrian resistance and Iraqi fighters. And remember, we said earlier that he was actually involved in a chat room discussion, a YouTube chat room discussion online about the building of bombs. And as soon as police found that out, they, of course, put an alert out saying that the school now has to be checked for potential explosives. As far as we know, Shep, no explosives have been found so far. They are still going room to room, space to space, checking out the school. And, of course, none of the fatalities have been brought out of the school so far. Shep.
Trace Gallagher with that new information. Trace, thanks very much. We've been listening as witnesses describe what they've seen today.
I was sitting in class, the bottom floor of the freshman building, and all we heard was gunshots. We heard 15 rounds shoot the ceiling. We all dove to the left side where the windows were. Our teacher told us to get to the side closest to the door, so we all ran behind the desk. The shooter, the good thing the door was locked, the shooter shot through the door, poked in, shot a couple people next to me. I was sitting right behind a cabinet, and the bullet passed my ear, got a girl next to me. We couldn't help anybody in the time because we had to stay quiet. 911 wasn't working on my phone. Apparently the guy got out, there's dead bodies in the hallway. People were killed in the hallway. My sister was running, she was in the bathroom at the time, and she ran from him and got luckily into a room that she found open.
Man, the things that they have seen today. We're waiting for the Broward Sheriff's Office to come forward with more details about those who did not survive today. We know 14 people, according to the local authorities, were taken to area hospitals. We don't know their conditions. We know that the suspect was taken to Broward Health North, which is a hospital there in the northern part of the county, and has since been taken away from there and is being transported to a holding facility for processing. We have heard today from the superintendent of schools. Again, this is an enormous school district. They have 30,000 employees and 337 schools within this district, 270,000 students within the Broward School District, and the superintendent is Robert Runcie.
So today has been a day of enormous mountains and valleys. I was leaving Monarch High School, where we were giving the Teacher of the Year keys to a brand new Toyota Camry that she won from being a Teacher of the Year in Broward County. We were celebrating our teachers, our schools, and got in the car. And as I'm driving back to the office, I start seeing communication, and I hear from staff that we may have a tragedy. And so I literally have come from giving the Teacher of the Year a car and celebrating our teachers and our district to where I am right now.
The deadliest school shooting in Broward County ever.
That's what it appears to be.
Robert Runcie, the superintendent of schools in Broward County. The sheriff, Scott Israel, came to the microphones just a short time ago as well to tell us what he could it would appear at least that the authorities like to notify next of kin before talking about specifics of those who have been killed. And it appears from our reporting on scene that they're attempting to notify family members before coming to the microphones. But we're expecting to hear from the Broward County Sheriff even now. The pictures on your screen are the transport of the suspect now. That suspect believed to be in the back of this squad car. And we believe that it was taken to central booking in Broward in downtown Fort Lauderdale, but we do not know that for sure. Again, most often the authorities who capture the suspect are the ones who are in charge of transport and the rest. But this is Broward County Sheriff's and a close-up picture here who are making the transport today. It all went down very quickly. Within an hour and a half after this started, our local helicopter was above a scene where it was clear that they had this suspect in custody. We had word that the suspect was seen with a black hat, with a maroon shirt, with black pants, that people there knew who he was. We didn't know how they knew, but now we do. Now we know he was a former student. He used to go to school there. Trace Gallagher reports that he was told, don't come back to this school with a backpack on. And now we're hearing from so many parents and others about what their kids went through that day. The South Florida Sun-Sentinel is one of two big newspapers up there, and it's reporting that one student said as she cried and hugged her friend who had just come out, "You're safe now, don't worry," talking to a very upset student named Samuel Dykes, a freshman, who was on the 3rd floor of this school when he heard the gunshots and saw several bodies in a classroom. A freshman in high school. SWAT told the class to keep their eyes forward as they exited that school. From the 3rd floor, they saw several bodies in the classroom. And around dismissal time at 40 minutes past 2 o'clock Eastern time this afternoon, staff and students heard what sounded like gunfire, and they enacted a code red lockdown, according to the Broward School District. Hannah Siren is 14, was the math class on the 3rd floor. Quoting here, "The people next door to us must not have had their door locked," breaking into tears. "They all got shot." And the reporter from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel asked, "How many?" And she said 10 or 7. All in the next class, she said, got shot. We don't know how the gunman got into this school. We don't know what his motivation was. We don't know the weapon he carried or who all saw him before it began, but we're led to believe that it started in a classroom where people were familiar with him, and we do not know how many of those inside that classroom are still alive. From the reporting of the Miami Herald today, updated just 3 minutes ago, an American nightmare is unfolding Wednesday afternoon in North Broward High School after a former student came onto campus and opened fire, killing and injuring more than a dozen people. That's from the Miami Herald today, and it's the belief that the suspect in this shooting is inside that vehicle being transported now. The Herald reports details are cloudy amid a flurry of police activity at the high school in Parkland off the Sawgrass Expressway. Students who heard the fire alarm go off just before dismissal, followed by gunshots, fled off campus and hid under desks as police sped to the scene. Parents blocked from getting to campus stood by helpless. The Broward Sheriff's Office reporting at least 14 victims and still working to clear the buildings in this massive school, home to 3,200 students who were just about to be dismissed. It was 7th period. Some of the students don't have 7th period classes, and according to those on scene, many of them were milling about as the shooting began in a classroom, and then, according to authorities, continued into the hallways before the student got somehow out of the building and off the campus and a half-mile away, where the choppers were overhead as they took the student into custody, took him to a hospital, and right now are taking him for processing in South Florida. It's Ralph Rayburn is in that chopper and speaking on our local station WSVN 7 now. Let's listen.
Live on WSVN earlier this afternoon. We put out information about a description of him wearing a maroon-colored shirt and black pants with a black hat, and the man fit the description there. Very alert police officers up there in the Coral Springs area responded to an address that they were able to develop information on that indicated that was a residence that he might be at, along with there was a fast food restaurant in the area where it was believed that he may have worked at one time. They checked that area too, and it wasn't that long after.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Occasionally when the helicopter moves, we lose our signal, and that's what happened there. Ralph, are you back?
Yeah. I'm back if you can see me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ralph. You were saying they knew they had an address of where he worked, a fast food restaurant?
Right, and plus they went through all of the protocol that they have with the teachers and everybody at the schools, the things that the training that they go through, and they developed that information. And with the number of police officers that responded, you can imagine not only from the Coral Springs area, but from all over. There were actually units from Hallandale. I believe there were K-9 Hallandale units that were responded to the scene here. So there were folks from all over the place, and there were so many police officers out there searching for this guy, and they took him into custody. They brought some witnesses over, people that saw him do the shooting. They confirmed identification on him, and they processed him. Now, he was in the back of a police car sitting on the side of the road there at 117th out there near the Sawgrass Expressway, and when he was being taken into custody, it looked for just a second there like he may have been struggling with a police officer, just a minor struggle, but when they were putting the handcuffs on him or processing him there. So maybe it's part of the protocol for the fire department to be called out just to check on the status of the person and make sure that their needs are met also. So they did that, and then they transported him, as you saw, in the fire rescue vehicle to the hospital. A short time later, after being processed and being checked out there, they're now they put him in the back of one of these police cars. We believe it's this car right here. It was the only green and white unit in this motorcade. We understand that's the one that it was, and they're now starting to make some good time here, coming up on Oakland Park Boulevard, going southbound on the I. This is his name is Nick Cruz. It went out originally as Nick Cruz. That was the person that they were looking for, the person of interest. So they do have that person in custody here.
Okay, Ralph Rayburn, thank you for that live update and your pictures and all of your.
It's Ralph Rayburn, who's up in that chopper for our local station WSVN. Ralph Rayburn's been working choppers in that city for 25 years, and Craig Stevens on the anchor desk, as he has been for exactly that long, and Lynn Martinez as well, carrying us through these tragedies this afternoon. These are members of this community. They've lived there for decades and covered news in that very busy news market for decades, and none of them has ever seen a day like today. The deadliest day in Broward County, Florida school history. One of the largest school districts in the country. We do not know the death toll, but we are now led to believe it will be significant. The gunman is in custody, and said the suspected gunman in the back of that squad car being taken into custody. Authorities are still working to the crime scene at the school in Parkland, where 3,200 students went to school on this Valentine's Day. School activities are closed tonight. School will not reopen tomorrow. School will not be able to reopen tomorrow as authorities continue, and the victims have not yet been brought out of that school. Another school shooting in America. And South Florida, our thoughts and prayers are with you and yours. It's time for a special report to begin on Fox News Channel. My friend Brett Baer down in Washington. Brett, it's just a horrifying thing to watch.
Again, thank you, Shep. This is a Fox News alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. A busy day here in the nation's capital. Several major stories happening here, but we begin tonight in South Florida. There has been a shooting at a high school in Parkland, north of Miami, and there are reports of injuries and what the school superintendent calls numerous fatalities. Now, we have